So we want to go over and debrief what went right and what went wrong today with the attempt to turn out the foals with the maiden mares, or the mares who don't have foals, in preparation for weaning. So what are your thoughts, Patty, on how things went today?
Surprisingly well. I'm not displeased with what happened, but we found out a few things about the herd dynamics and the horses themselves. Regina George was a lot more aggressive than I thought she was going to be. And that in itself isn't really a problem, because the foals do need to learn how to behave, and it's fine to have a herd boss mare. And luckily, all of the interactions were kept short of hurting anybody, so it's a lot of posturing. Princess just fascinated me. She is so much like a stallion, between the pawing and then the kicking and the squealing. So she was aggressive, and yet she's not that attached to Lance. So that's an interesting dynamic that, we'd love to hear your views on that and why that might have happened.
Yeah.
And then we had Bubbles, and Bubbles is a problem. So Bubbles ran. She just ran. She wasn't running because of Lovey. She just ran with no plan. And that's not a very good role model for Lovey. So I'm thinking that the dynamics, so we ended up separating them all. In case for you guys who watched the video, we took all the pairs back out, we separated them all, and gave them a little bit of relief. It was interesting to watch that Lance immediately, Princess wanted to stay close to him, and Lance stayed close to his mom for maybe a minute or two, and immediately trotted off. So he was fine. Lovey needed a little bit of reassurance from her mom. She stayed close to her, which is not unexpected. We've been talking about the distances and the interactions that are happening. But Halo has become essentially Regina's baby, and so that's not working. So
yeah,
I have to have a different plan for tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's not a problem to have a boss mare, but it's a problem to have two boss mares and two young babies in a field together, just because they could get caught in the crossfire. And then Bubbles really just seemed to have no clue about proper herd behavior, I would say. She just ran and wasn't paying attention to Lovey, didn't seem to have any kind of a plan, was just really...
I think at one point, Lovey actually ended up on the other side of Regina and Princess, and
Right.
Bubbles was still just running around.
Right. And so that was just not conducive to any kind of settling in, and she didn't seem to be settling down very readily. So that's really, really problematic. And Patty and I were discussing whether it's interesting to see that Lovey is definitely not she's more cautious than Lance. Lance is incredibly bold for a foal. Yeah. Just, even after he was chased off by Regina, he was back trying to go investigate Halo, and, seems to have no regard for his own safety. He's very self-assured and self-confident and bold, which is great because that's what we want to see in a future jumper. Lovey seems to be picking up on some of the weaker aspects of Bubbles' character, which are her tendency to get into a little bit of a panic.
Yeah, just you can feel the angst just sort of shifting off of her sometimes. So I think the plan tomorrow, I know the plan tomorrow is we're going to bring in Regina and Halo into the barn. We're going to turn Halo out with Lance and Princess alone, just the three of them, let them get a little bit used to each other. Then we'll introduce the next set of Bubbles and Lovey with Lance, Halo, and Princess. And for now, we're going to keep Regina George out of the mix. I think Regina George is going to be the right horse once the babies are weaned, but we need Bubbles not to be in that mix. And the double herd boss mares of the two gray horses, we can't have that happening. These horses are, there's too much invested in them emotionally and monetarily and hopes and dreams for somebody to get hurt through some inadvertent use.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely keeping the safety in mind while making a good transition through weaning, and then having some sort of direction with an older horse in with the foals after weaning is kind of what we're looking at.
And this comes from my previous experience. So Odie, who happened to be the winner of that Spruce Meadows cooler right there at the Masters. Sorry, I had to throw that one in there. But anyways, my first set that I weaned together were Odie and Slim. And Odie became so attached to Slim that when they were 2 or 3, I had to send them out, and we had to tie Odie up in a stall where he tried to climb the walls. It was so stressful on him, and I could see Lovey being that type of horse. And in the long term, Odie's a little bit angsty. So whatever we can do to help prevent or ameliorate those tendencies now is really important. So what I do is I take what I've learned from the past, and although I have not bred that many horses, the ones that I've bred have gone on to succeed at a very high level across the board. And by treating them each as an individual and understanding that they have different needs and trying to cater to those needs within the framework of what the horse's requirements are to be good social animals is really important to me.
Yeah, and I do think that horses that grow up knowing a herd dynamic, I would guess that Princess, as a young horse in Europe, was probably turned out with other horses.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
She definitely had control of the dynamics of the group and stepped up and was acting in a way that showed she had some herd behavior knowledge. And I think that's important for a well-balanced horse in the future, that they've got to have the security of kind of knowing the pecking order.
Yes, because while they want to develop a relationship with their rider, there also has to be somebody who is the boss.
Right. So if they are always, like if Lance never has to comply with or do anything that any other horse says, he's going to be more challenging.
But especially if we do plan on keeping him a stallion, we're hoping that he's of that quality, and so far everything we're seeing he is. But given that there's an extra layer of he needs to behave, we've talked about this in previous things, he's not allowed to chew on the rope, he's not allowed to misbehave, because as he gets bigger and stronger, it can be difficult for those of us around him.
And dangerous.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a responsibility in raising horses to have them become good horse citizens.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Because no matter where they end in the future, you want them to be able to have a good life. And horses that are difficult and misbehave or are dangerous to humans really limit their potential for future ownership in general.
How many times have you met a person and they say, "Oh, you do horses?" And they're like, "Wow, the first time I was ever around a horse," and generally 60% of the time it's a horror story. It bit me, it kicked me, I fell off, it reared, it ran me into a tree. Yeah. Definitely. And so that's just not something that we want to promote as far as the horses that are being raised here. They need to be good citizens, and that opens up a world of futures to them. So if they don't excel at the highest level of the sport, or when they become older, they still have many options with amateur owners, and bringing younger riders up the ranks and being the teacher. So so thank you for following along with us, and hopefully tomorrow will be a little less eventful, but definitely it will be an adventure. And still educational.
Definitely.
Have a great day from Foals.
Thank you.